Yo, what's up people? Hope you're well. Today we're going to be looking at how to make this Vox style intro. I've used these techniques a lot to impress clients, and best of all, they're pretty simple to make. If you want to join my free Discord server with lots of goodies, you can find the link on the pinned comment. First things first, we're going to come up with an idea. My intro is going to be about the invention of the camera, which is inspired by this intro from Vox.
In 1888, the Eastman Kodak Company rolled out a new camera and a new...
It's important to understand what goes into the making of a Vox style intro, that being image sequences, hand-drawn assets like arrows and circles, and character animations. The biggest factor that goes into making a good intro is going to be the music. It's got to be bouncy or have good flow. Then you have to make sure you're using high quality assets. You can do this by going to free stock websites like FreePic, or in our case we can use archive museum sites to get images. Or my favourite method, which is just using Google Images and going to the Tools filter and changing the size to large. Finally, colours and style. Vox predominantly use yellow and whites, as well as paper textures and grid textures. To prepare for the character animation we're going to do, you're going to mask out parts of your image you want to animate. You can use Photoshop or After Effects for this, it doesn't really matter. And a great tip to make a character blink and not deal with loads of annoying masks is by using Adobe Firefly Generative Fill, which is free. You simply cut out the part you want to regenerate and type closed eyes into the prompt bar. Alright, now we're inside of After Effects. We're going to start a new composition. First things first, we're going to name it main. And we're going to change the width 3840 and the height to 2160. And then the FPS to 60. And then the duration can be 15 seconds or whatever you want. And then in the project window, you're going to right click and make a new folder. Call this one comps. Then do another one and call this one assets. You're going to drag all of your comps into here and then all of your assets into here. This is just good practice, keeps it, clean and organized. Then you're going to drag in your music, drag it onto your timeline, pull it into the assets folder, just name it music. And now we're going to put some markers on it. So we're going to double tap L on our keyboard to see the waveform to show where the beats are in it. So going to see one here, and then we're going to come to this little pin and click on it, and it will add a marker here. Just going to go to the next one, add a pin or marker, next one, and then next one. Okay, so after adding all of your markers, you can now drag in your assets. So for this first scene, it's going to be a title sequence. You find all of your assets, and then drag them into your project window, pull them onto your timeline, and then put them in the assets folder. Make sure they're in order, so obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're going to rename them all. It's just good practice. Okay. Going to hide them, and one by one we're going to scale them up so that they fit in our composition. So drag this one up, cool, have it start here, cut it, start the number 2, scale this one up, pull it up a little bit maybe, so it's centered, like that. Maybe a little bit more up, nice. 3. Okay, once you've cut up all of your images and scaled them to fit in the composition, we are going to do the image sequence movement. So you can do this individually on each layer. However, that gets very tricky, and you can just create a null object instead. So you're going to right click on your timeline, go new, go null object. Make sure you cut the null to the size of everything. I'm going to just name this image controller. And we're going to select all of our image layers. You see this little squiggly pick whip? We are going to drag it onto the null. Now, we are going to start with a pan up position transition. So we're going to press P on our keyboard, hit the animate button, drag this keyframe all the way along in between the 6 and 7. Doesn't really matter. You can have it literally anywhere you want, but I just picked there. And we are going to change the Y position and drag this image down. Now, this is why it's really important to have large resolution assets with a lot of room at the top, so you can have transitions like this. You're going to right click on your position, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then you're going to go into the graph editor, highlight both of your points, move them along until you have this really sharp like L or like drop, and this will just mean it starts like the transition starts really fast, or like the pan up. Okay, so as well we're going to add a scale, so we're going to press S on our keyboard for our null, animate it, then press U to bring up our keyframes. We're going to come all the way along to the second to the last keyframe, or like a frame in the null, and we are going to make it 110. And then we're going to right click on our scale, keyframe assistant, easy ease again, graph editor. I'm going to select both of our points, and then we are going to do a slightly different graph. We're going to drag it all the way over here, and then pull this point a little bit to the left. And then we can see now. And for the sake of our next scene, we're going to come to this last image here, press P on our keyboard, animate the position, and we are going to go to the second to last keyframe again, and we are going to drag it to the left. And then we are going to right click on it again, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then graph editor again. And we are going to make it the opposite of what we did for the null, so it's like a drop, like an increase, like a really hard increase. And then this will mean when we transition to the next scene, it will like flow quite well. With the image sequence done, we're now going to be moving on to designing the character animation part of this. So the first thing we're going to do is bring in a background texture. So with our texture in here, we're going to rename it to paper texture, drag it into our assets folder. Then we are going to come to our shape layer tool, this rectangle, get rid of the stroke, and then we are going to make a white background by double clicking on the shape layer to fill it to our comp size. And then we are going to cut both of these to our lengths. I'm just going to name this one BG for background. We're going to take our texture, we're going to scale it up, and we're going to go to position, press P on our keyboard, and then we are going to make a point, animate it, right click on the point and go to toggle hold keyframe, which will mean each keyframe is basically just a jump cut to the next point. We're going to go a little bit along, drag it to the left, a little bit more along, drag it more, a little bit more along, drag it there, there. So it's in each corner, and then we're going to Control C the first keyframe and then Control V it. And then now we have a transition texture, sorry. And then we are going to hold Alt on our keyboard, click on the animation thing, and we're just going to type loop out. This will mean the keyframes are looped. So now you have the looping texture. And then we are going to go to the effects and presets panel, and you are going to type in invert, as we want to invert the colors so the blacks pop more. And then we're going to press T on our keyboard to bring up opacity. We're going to set it to 25%. So now we have a nice textured background. Next, we are going to come to our file, and then we are going to import a file. You're going to go get your character mask, then import as, and then composition retain layers. You're just going to import, and then it will say retain layers, editable layer style, okay. And then we are going to drag this into solids, and then drag, open this by double clicking, and then drag it into the compositions. So now we have all of our character mask, looking quite creepy actually. So we are going to copy this by Control-C'ing and then Control-Ving it. And then we can close that out. Okay, so first things first, we're going to right click new and create a new null object to control the character. So we are just going to call this the character controller, and then we're going to select all of our character layers and pick whip them onto the null. And then we are going to come to this proportional grid, and it will bring up the, like the thirds of the images so we can center it. We are just going to roughly drag it into the center. I would say that's pretty centered, and then we're going to come to this anchor point moving tool, and we're going to move the anchor point of the null to the center, so that when we scale it up, it will be even, so like that. And then if we have it over here, it will scale up from there. Okay, now we are going to go to our shape tool, hold mouse 1, and then click on the ellipse tool, go to fill, and change the color to FFCC00. We're going to hold shift and drag a circle, and then we're going to right click, transform, and center the anchor point for it, and we're going to drag this behind our guy, and we can go to the align tool to center it, and now you can see he's got like a yellow iris. So we're just going to get our pen tool and select a nice off-white, so F3, F3, F3. We're going to create the shape around his eyes, so like that. And then we're just going to drag this below the character layers, but above the yellow circle. Just call this white of eyes. And then we're going to parent that to the character null as well. Okay, next we are going to add some camera images. So go to assets, drag them both in, put them in the assets folder. We're just going to call these first camera 1 and then first camera 2. Take the first camera 1, I'm going to put it behind him, scale it down, rotate it. Scale it down a bit more, maybe 75, so that's pretty good. Then we're going to take the second camera layer and we are just going to quickly mask out the part we don't want. So I don't really want the legs to be in here, so I'm going to mask that out. And just do a quick mask around it. And then we are going to move it to where we want it. Scale up a bit. Rotate it. Okay, now we've moved all of our assets into position and we've designed our scene. We can start animating. So what I'm going to first start with is the transition from the last scene. So you know how I mentioned this is going to the left? We're going to have this character start coming in from the right to move to the left, so it'll look like a flowing transition. And make sure you have everything parented to the character null, so everything moves with it. Click P on your keyboard and then animate the position. Move the original keyframe to wherever you want. Just drag it a little bit to the right. Right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, graph editor. Then we're going to animate it, so it's like this. So you see how it looks like it's flowing, even though there's a cut in it, like it's kind of like an illusion. But it works really well in literally every circumstance used. So we can look what we've done so far. Now we are going to animate his hat. So we're going to press R on our keyboard to bring up the rotation and animate it. And I think I want it to have a little cartoonish bounce. So let's start it with maybe +5, then go over here, and maybe -1, and then finish on 0, obviously. We're going to right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, drag this point here. I think I want it to be a little faster. Yeah, I think I want this keyframe to be a little bit in, and then a little bit more outwards. Sweet, that looks great. And then we are going to scale up everything in the background. So we're going to come to the yellow circle. We're going to press S on our keyboard and then animate this and then bring it down to about there. So we don't want it to like scale from 0. So we're just going to have it scale from this point to this, but we'll graph it so it looks like it's scaled up from 0, if that makes sense. Kind of right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, graph editor again, and then highlight both of our points, and then make a really sharp like L curve. So it'll look like this. I think I want it to be shorter, and then start smaller. So it looks like this. And then we are going to get our camera layers, and we're going to come to the anchor point moving tool. We're going to move the anchor point so it's behind the person. And we are going to press R on our keyboard and then make sure it matches up roughly with the yellow circle. Gonna move here, then we're going to have it come downwards. So it starts from 0 and then goes to 12. And then do a sharp L graph again. So it'll look like this. And then we're going to do it with this point as well, but we're going to do the opposite. So it sort of flows in like a circular direction, if you understand what I mean. So like this, we're going to and then have it upwards instead. We're going to right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease again, a graph editor, then do a sharp curve again, and it will look like this. Okay, so now we're going to animate the head. So to make it easier, we're going to parent each body part or part of the character to the correlating point. So hat to head, and then the pupils to the head as well, and then the head to the body. And we're going to come to the head and we're going to increase the scale so that there's no gaps when we rotate it. And we are going to press R on our keyboard, and because it's coming in from this direction, we are going to start it off at +5. And then as you can see, there is a giant gap. So we just move the head down and then a little bit to the left. And then we are going to have it finish on 0. Actually, we can add some like some flair to it, or like some style. So we're going to make it -1. So it comes the opposite direction, so it has a little bit of animation. And then we're going to have it the last keyframe 0. Right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, go to the graph editor, and then make it really sharp L curves. I think it's important to have it match up with the hat as well, so I think this is just like way too long. I'm going to move the points to the hat so it looks like something like this. I think I'm going to drag this out as well because I think it's too short. Sweet. Okay, now we're going to add some blinks. So as I showed at the beginning of the video, the really easy way to get blinking without having to mess with loads of masks is Adobe Firefly. So drag in your image from which you got there. We're just going to rename this to blink, and then we're going to make it about, I don't know, 5 or 4 frames. And we are going to scale it up to the rough size of our character. It's about good to me. Okay, and we're just going to mask around the eyelid. So blink left. Then we're just going to hold Alt and click on the points to make them Bezier so they're curved. And then on the mask, we're going to press M and go up to feather. We're going to add 15 feather so it blends in a lot more. And then we are also going to have to do the right eye. Well, so blink right. Then press M on your keyboard, get rid of the mask, and then just mask around the eye roughly. Holding Alt on your keyboard, click your points, make them Bezier, and boom. Then we are also going to add feather of 15 there. We're going to pull out the point a bit more. So there you go. Now you have your character blinking. With the blink done, you can just copy them and put them wherever you want. Now that we've animated the blinks, we're going to animate the pupils moving. So what we're going to do is we are going to drag them below the head and body layer. And we're just going to press P on our keyboard, bring up the position, and animate both points. We're going to have them start moving just before the blink and then end after the blink. So the right pupil, we're going to have this just move a little bit like that. And then have this one move over like that. We're going to highlight both of these points, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then we are going to just move them inwards. So select both points, move them slightly inwards, so it's kind of like a mountain. So we're going to copy the last keyframe, Control V and Control C and Control V, and then come back, and then we can move the pupils to the original points. I want them to be longer, so I'm going to highlight them and then hold Alt on my keyboard and click and drag them out. Make sure the graph is the same, so go into the graph editor and you can see it's now not the original graph. So we're going to just do the same as we did a second ago, drag them inwards. Sweet. Okay, and then we're going to do some text now. So we're going to come to our shape layer, select the rectangle, make a nice deep red. And we're just going to hold shift and then click and make a really small point. So it's almost like a bullet point. And then drag it to wherever you want it. So I'm going to have it down here. And then we are going to select our font, which is going to be the font called Balto, which is one in Vox they always use. I'm going to make it bold, and then we are going to click and type Joseph Nice for, I think that's his name. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but anyway. And then we are going to come to the color and type 272727. That's a nice deep gray. And then we are just going to increase the size a whole bunch. And then come to this VA, which is the tracking on the text, and drag it inwards. So the letters are closer together. Then we're going to just put it here. We're going to go to the proportional grid again, because we want to make sure the red square and text are centered. So I'd say that is probably about centered. So yeah, I think the text is a little bit too big, so we're going to make it 80. And then get the proportional grid back up. Move the square inwards, and then highlight both of the layers. There we go, that's nice and centered. And then we are going to animate the scale of the square. So press S on your keyboard, click the animation button, then go from 0 to 100. Right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, highlight both points, and then we're going to have a graph like this. So it's just drag this point as far as you can, and then we are going to have the text come out with a position animation. So that's going to pop up, and then about here the text should start to come up. So we're going to move it. And then drag the original point along, then pull this to the left, right click, easy ease, and then this one we're going to make a really sharp L graph, so it looks like this. And then we are going to go to effects and presets and type typewriter in, and it will come up with this animation preset. You're going to drag it on, press U on your keyboard, and this point will be really far, and you can drag it inwards, so it looks like this. I think that's a little bit slow. I mean fast, sorry. We'll try both. I think that's good. Okay, so now we're going to add arrows to the scene. And these are ones that I've made myself, and they'll be in the description or on my Patreon for free. Drag your arrows on, make it -90, and then scale it downwards. I'm just going to rename this arrows. Then we're going to go to the levels effect, and we are going to increase the whites and blacks. So we want the paper to be completely white and then the pen to be completely black. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to type color key in. We're going to get a linear color key. And we're going to get the little key dropper and click on it. And then we'll be left with the blacks. And then we can increase the tolerance on the color key to get rid of more of the white. So about here is good. Maybe a little bit less. And then we can type the effect fill. And then this will enable us to pick whatever color we want. So I think I'm going to pick a nice yellow. So FFCC00. And then we're going to turn off PNG background. And then we're going to just mask one we want. So I think I want this one right here. Nice curly one. And then we're going to right click on it, transform, center anchor point, then unsolo it. Then we can put it over here, increase the scale a whole bunch. And then maybe we could have this one up here. So we're going to right click, transform, flip horizontally, flip vertically. There we go. Then we can rotate this a whole bunch, like that. Just mess around with it to see what you get and what you like. Okay, I'm going to Control D to duplicate it and get rid of the mask and then solo it. Okay, I think I'm going to pick this one, so I'm just going to mask it out. Right click, transform, center the anchor point, and then unsolo it. Increase the scale to 193. And then we are going to flip it horizontally and then move it so it's like this. Maybe flip it vertically or horizontally again, sorry. So it's more like that. So now we have 2 arrows in the scene, and then we are going to animate these. So I'm going to solo one. So what we're going to do now is animate the arrow, so it sort of like draws itself on. So we're going to click the pen tool and we're going to turn off the fill and then turn on the stroke. Make this like a nice deep red so you can see easily. It won't be visible in the final thing, so it doesn't actually really matter. And we are just going to draw around the arrow. So making sure it's perfectly online, like you'd be tracing it in real life. And then we're just going to follow the loop here. So like there, there and there. We're going to hold Alt on our keyboard and click the points to make them Bezier. Then just drag the points like that, like that. And then we're going to come to this point, we're going to drag it down here. Hold Alt on that one again. Move that Bezier point there, move that so it's in the center. Maybe move this a little bit along. You can basically just add as many points as you want to make sure it's in the center. Just carry on doing it. Along. And then go to this last point, which will be here. Now once you're done with this long line, click off and then click back on to your shape layer. And then we're just going to draw a new shape on that layer for the arrow head. I'm going to make it about 25 and then hold Alt and click to Bezier that point. Basically just going to try to cover it as much as possible. So like that. Like that. Move that point. And then cut it. And then we're going to come into the little drop down menu of the shape and click the first shape and make the stroke maybe 15. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it doesn't matter. And then on the shape, we're going to type cap into it and change it from butt cap to round cap. So now you see it's got some nice circles on the edge. And we're just going to rename this to arrow matte. Come to the drop down menu and then we're going to see this little add. We're going to add trim paths twice. So now that we have 2 trim paths, we're going to drag one into shape 1 and then the other into shape 2. Then on the layer, we can search up end. This will bring up the animation for like the hand-drawn look. So we're going to keyframe both of these, move them along, and have them both start at 0. Then you can see, sort of draws it along. Nice. And then we're going to hold, like select both of them, and then right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, graph editor, select both of the points, and then just drag it along. I think that's a bit fast, so we're going to pull it out. And then we are going to move the arrowhead one along, and then make it smaller by holding Alt and clicking. And then having it start right towards the end of here. So then now we can click this toggle switches and modes, and then change the arrows layer to a alpha matte. So with the shape layer above it, you change it to an alpha matte, and then you can see this. So you see how it now draws the arrow. And then we're basically just going to repeat that for the next one. So the last thing we're going to be doing for the scenes is a Vox style title. So we are going to keep all of our layers individual for the text. So I'm just going to type the first, and then a new layer, and this is going to be camera. We're going to make this one all capitals, and we're going to change the font to be ultra. We're going to change the tracking to a little bit less, and then we're just going to increase the size significantly. About there. Okay, and the last text we're going to do is going to be the same as the first font, so we're just going to duplicate that with Control D, and we're just going to ever made. And we are going to highlight all of those layers, right click, transform, and then center the anchor point on them. And we are going to use the align tool, and we're going to align the camera and ever made text. So I'm going to turn off the first, and then we're going to go to the proportional grid. So I'm going to move that along, and then ever made will come over here. Okay, and make sure it is aligned. So I think if we can highlight both the layers, then we can see, let's say just about there is centered. I'm going to take the first text, and we're just going to drag it and put it above the middle of the C. So it's like here. What we're going to do is we're going to come to our red square that we made earlier, and we're just going to copy it, and then we're going to use it over here as well. Put it right here. We're just going to make it a little bit smaller, so we're going to click on this keyframe, and we're going to make it 80. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get a grid overlay, or paper texture. And then I'm going to put it here, just name this grid paper, and zoom it in a bit. Actually, we're going to mask it instead. So I'm going to click the rectangle tool with this layer selected, hold shift, and then just mask it. And then right click again, transform, and center anchor point. I'm going to make this the same height as the first text. So here. So 50 I think would be pretty good. Right here. Then after this we're going to go to our shape tool, hold mouse 1, and then go to the ellipse tool. Take the stroke off, and then go to fill. Make it yellow again. We're going to hold shift and click to about that size, right click, transform, center the anchor point, and then drag it behind our text. And I think I want to make it a little bit smaller, so we'll make it 80. And then like that. It's in the circle, so it's about that. I'm just going to name this yellow circle again. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, come to the grid paper, and we are going to press S on our keyboard and animate the scale. So from 0 to 50, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Then we're going to highlight our points and then drag that graph. I think that's a little bit too long, so we're going to highlight it and then hold Alt and drag inwards. Okay, we're going to have the word camera start typing about there, and then the yellow circle start to scale up. So we're going to also have the yellow circle scale up, so animating it the same way we just did. 0 to 80, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then we're just going to highlight it and then drag the graph like that. And before I forget, I'm going to animate the position of the first one. So drag the original point and then pull it from the left, animate it, graph edit it again, and make it really steep. Like that. Then we are going to go to the effects and presets and type typewriter up, put it on, press U on our keyboard to bring up the points, and then drag them down. And we want the letter C to start as the yellow circle is getting bigger. So we're going to move the layer towards there. I think we're going to shorten the yellow circle scale up as well. Okay, and then we are going to have the ever made text go have a pan up transition. So we're going to press P on it, animate the position, go along, have it go downwards, animate it, graph edit it the way so it just happens instantly. And we'll have this so far. I think the camera text goes a bit too fast, so we're going to extend it and pull those outwards. Pull them out even more. I think instead of a scale, we should change it. So I'm going to get rid of the scale. We're going to animate the position. So get rid of the expression, and we are going to have it come out from the left. So as the text is there, I'm going to have it there, and move the original, have it so it looks like it's coming out from the text that says ever made. Okay, we're going to put it behind there. Then we're going to move it to about here. I think it's too much movement, so we're going to move it to about there. There we go, and this is what we have so far. Sweet. So now I'm going to create a null layer, and we're just going to call it text controller. And then we are going to parent everything from the text onto that. We're going to animate the scale on the null. Have it finish about there. Zoom in, maybe 115, and then right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Graph editor, highlight both points. I think if we do this, it may look good. Okay, so let's have a look. See, I think that's too slow, so we can try a really sharp L. Let's have a look at what we've done. Sweet. Okay, so now that we've done animating, we're going to be moving on to the source, which is the best bit. We are going to be creating 2 adjustment layers, so hold Control, Alt and Y, and then do that twice. So one's going to be called FX and one's going to be called FPS. So on the FPS layer, we're going to add posterize time, and we are going to make it 12. Now this will just add like the nice touch that almost all Vox animations use, and you should use in all of your animations too. It's just really low hanging fruit and it looks amazing. And then for this, we're going to add the effects sharpen and make it 20. Now the reason we're using sharpen is because we're using a lot of illustrated images. So let me show you. So let's take this image for example. If you zoom in, you can see without sharpen, it's kind of blurry. And then with sharpen, you can see it's so much more like clear. So that's without, without, with. Okay, and then the next effect we're going to be adding is the camera shake. So you're going to add transform, and then make the scale 101, and go to the position and hold Alt on your keyboard and click, and then you're going to type posterize time 3, and then go wiggle 2221, so 222 and then 1, and then that will just add a camera shake. You can always save this as a animation preset by clicking on it and then going animation and then save the animation preset and then type blah, 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 camera shake, whatever, you know. And then you're going to add the effect noise, just the stock one, and make it about 15 and then change it to so make sure you uncheck the use color noise. And then finally you're going to create another adjustment layer. You're just going to cut this one quite short. We're going to call this one blur. We're going to make it Gaussian blur. Then we're going to start it at 15, then animate it down all the way to 0. Then repeat edge pixels so there's no edges missing. Going to right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease it, and keyframe it like this. Okay, then we're going to copy that. And we are going to put it onto this as well. So come to there. And then we are also going to do it for this part as well. Copy it again and put it there. Okay, for the text, we're going to move it inwards a bit so you can actually see it. And then we're just going to drag that back so it looks like this. We're also going to stretch it out a bit. I think it should be a bit longer. There we go. There you have it. Now you have your Vox style intro. Obviously, there are many Vox intros and they're all done very differently. So each one's going to be, you know, a different style, different animation technique, because obviously they're going to have different animators. But this is like the basis of what they do. So like image sequence, character animation, or some sort of unique animation, and then a title card. If you found this video helpful, subscribing and dropping a like would be very appreciated. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new, as well as some extra sauce on the side. Lastly, my socials and any relevant link will be in the description below. And if you want to suggest any tutorials, please do so in the comments below. I'll be sure to note them down. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.